Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome back to my podcast for those of you who are listening to this episode on my podcast Written in the Stars by Rux, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to it yet, it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Today, we are going to be talking about the full moon happening on the 24th of June in Capricorn at, let me tell you, 3 degrees and 27 minutes of Capricorn. But before we jump in, I have a few things that I would like to mention from the very beginning. First and foremost, I am a Western tropical astrologer, and all the episodes on my podcast and all the videos on my YouTube channel follow Western tropical astrology. Secondly, I use the whole sign house system. In the whole sign house system, the sign of your ascendant is the sign that governs your entire first house. The sign after the ascendant will govern your second house in your natal chart, and so on. Why do I use the whole sign house system? Because I have found it to be the most accurate in my experience and in my clients' experience, especially when it comes to timings and forecasting. Thirdly, if you want to work with me, if you want to book a reading, a natal chart reading, a yearly forecast reading, a live consultation, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. So again, writteninthestars-astrology.com. And in the services section, you're going to find the various types of readings that you can go for. Last but not least, whenever you are listening to one of my videos / episodes, I strongly recommend, especially when it comes to forecasting, I strongly recommend that you first and foremost listen to the update for your ascendant, for your rising sign / ascendant. The ascendant is the exact degree of your rising sign, because that is essentially how you enter the world. That is where your natal chart begins. That is how you approach the world around you, and you might find that you resonate more with it, and secondly, that you find it more accurate. But the sun sign update is also really good if you do not know your rising sign, and we as individuals identify with the sun generally. The sun is our ego, hence why there is still value in listening to the update for your sun sign. Let's talk about the full moon in Capricorn happening on the 24th of June. So to be more precise, folks, this is happening at 6:39 in the evening GMT. And full moons, as I am very sure you know already, represent peaks, culminations, endings, a period of closure. And this full moon is going to reflect back to events or to themes that may have kicked off in your life around the new moon in Capricorn happening in January 2021 on the 13th of January. So my very first recommendation is have a think about what was going on in your life around the 13th of January. 3 days before, 3 days after. You hear me mention this sort of like time frame all the time. You could look through your email archive. You could look through your Instagram stories archives. Speaking of Instagram, you can also follow me on Instagram at Rux, unbelievable in one word. And I actually post stories, updates quite often, almost on a daily basis. Not exactly on a daily basis, but almost on a daily basis. So the first thing to keep in mind is that this full moon is the peak of a cycle that kicked off 6 months ago. What do the aspects in the sky look like on the day of the eclipse? My apologies, not the eclipse. So when I'm filming this, Mercury is still retrograde, so please don't shoot the messenger if I have some sort of slip of the tongue. So what's happening on the day of the full moon on the 24th of June? We obviously have the moon in the sign of Capricorn in opposition to the sun in the sign of Cancer. Both the sun and the moon are going to be in a harmonious aspect to Jupiter at the time in Pisces. So the sun is going to be trining Jupiter and the moon is going to be sextiling Jupiter. Generally, when we have aspects to Jupiter, the news is positive. The events that come up bring with them hope of a specific kind. Jupiter in Pisces also brings an abundance of healing. So there may be this feeling of us being healed in some shape or form. Now, the more challenging part about this full moon is the fact that the ruler of the full moon, Saturn, the dispositor of the moon, is going to be in an opposition to Mars. Saturn is actually moving past an exact square to Uranus, but Saturn is going to be forming and applying, therefore, an increasingly powerful opposition with Mars. Now, what can this bring at a collective level? Okay, so the full moon as a whole is probably going to bring some sort of good news connected to rules, to status, to maybe the lockdowns, maybe something connected with legal matters, something connected with institutions. There could be also news connected with people's livelihoods, connected with their homes, connected with their past. There can be some sort of positive news coming to the table from our leaders, because Capricorn is associated with leadership, and especially in mundane astrology, it's associated with the governments. Now, I know there's a lot of skeptics out there, and again, do not shoot the messenger, but it does look like the majority of people are likely to be pleased in some shape or form that some sort of issue that is connected with legal matters, that is connected with the law, that is connected with rules, that is connected with restrictions also, because Saturn and Capricorn in general are associated with tradition, conservatism, and at the same time maintaining boundaries, maintaining restrictions. So there could be this feeling of some restrictions being dissolved, some restrictions being lifted off. Jupiter, let's not forget, is also the ruler of long distance travel. So there could be new rules, or there could be the time to say goodbye to some restrictions connected with travel. But at the same time, there is something that really rubs people off the wrong way at the time of this full moon. And if you ask me, it probably is going to have to do with the fact that people's willpower feels stifled in some shape or form. Their initiative feels stifled in some shape or form. Why do I say this? Because Mars is connected with willpower. Mars, which is in opposition to Saturn at the time, is connected with individuality. It is connected with autonomy. It is connected with entrepreneurship. It is connected with boldness. It is connected with stamina. And Saturn kind of like puts the damper on the whole stamina thing and on the whole willpower thing. It's a mixed feelings type of full moon. It can feel like, okay, we know that some liberties are going to be given back to the people, but at the same time, something connected with their individuality and with their freedom to choose and with their freedom to lead themselves, Mars, is taken away from them. Now, my guess is, and those of you who work with me know that I always mention the fact that astrology does not predict exact material manifestation. Why? Because astrology is a language of symbols and archetypes that anticipates possibilities and studies patterns, but it does not take away our free will. But my guess is, from a material manifestation perspective, that something connected with the vaccine passports maybe is going to be introduced, possibly. Some sort of strict adherence to a specific set of rules is going to be introduced if we want to go back to traveling or moving around the world in the same way that we have moved in the past. So that's my 2 cents. It could be a different type of restriction that is being imposed upon people. It could be a different type of rule that is being imposed upon people, and people are like, why are you taking my choice away? But I suppose we shall see around the world how this plays out. Now, let us dive into the updates for each zodiac sign. What can each zodiac sign expect from this full moon? Don't forget, listen to your sun sign and to your rising sign as well. Now, if you are an Aries sun or an Aries rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June is going to probably reflect back the themes that were prominent in your life around the 13th of January give or take 3 days before, 3 days after. I would also look at the 3 days before, 3 days after the 24th of June. This full moon is triggering your 10th house, 4th house axis. So the axis of public life versus private life, career versus family. I mean, not that they're against each other at war, but there is some sort of culmination happening, you could say, in regards to your career sector in your 10th house. That also seems to be impacting the way you carry out your life at home in private. And this full moon is, again, in a great aspect with Jupiter in Pisces in your 12th house. Now, I really like this. Why? Because it looks like someone with power, someone with influence, someone from behind the scenes is likely to give you some sort of recognition, is likely to give you some sort of award, maybe public award, Aries, for the work that you have been doing. This could also result for some Aries in some sort of bonus, maybe a promotion of some shape and kind. It could also be you learning that you have received a specific career opportunity that is going to propel you forward. It could be the completion of a very high exposure project career-wise that you have been involved in the past 6 months. Now, at the same time, we have Saturn in the 11th house, the ruler of the full moon, in opposition to Mars in the 5th house. I'm not very keen on this aspect because it does look like for you to move forward with a long-term goal and plan, it looks like you maybe have to make a compromise on something that you were very keen to do in terms of fun, in terms of entertainment. Maybe you have to like cancel some entertaining plans that you had. So what can I say? What can I say? Mixed bag. Now, if you are a Taurus sun or a Taurus rising, on the 24th of June, we have a full moon in Capricorn happening in your 9th house, triggering your 9th house, 3rd house axis, the axis of learning and travel, my dear Taurus. In a great aspect with Jupiter and Pisces in your 11th house of friends. But at the same time, we have Saturn in Aquarius in your 10th house of career in opposition to Mars in your 4th house of home. So what is happening? First and foremost, look back at the 13th of January at the new moon in Capricorn, 3 days before, 3 days after, because there's probably going to be a reflection of themes at the time of this full moon. It looks like you are completing some sort of cycle of studies, my dear Taurus, at this time. Maybe you're hearing news connected to exams that you have been taken. Maybe you are graduating. Maybe you're completing a course. I really like the fact that this full moon is harmoniously aspecting Jupiter in your 11th house of long-term plans, goals, and dreams. What you're completing learning-wise is propelling you forward in terms of achieving one of your long-term objectives, my dear Taurus. This could also be a time when you travel, possibly abroad, with friends. Now, I don't like the fact that Saturn in your house of career and public status is opposing Mars in your 4th house of home. There could be some sort of ego clash with a member of your family or with a person in a position of authority in your career. That puts a bit of a damper on your parade, my lovely Taurians. Now, if you are a Gemini sun or a Gemini rising, on the 24th of June, you have a full moon in Capricorn in your 8th house of other people's resources, also triggering your 2nd house of income, in a great aspect with Jupiter and Pisces in your 10th house of career. Now, first and foremost, my dear Geminis, look back at the new moon in Capricorn on the 13th of January, because there can be a reflection of themes in June, around the 24th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, the completion of a 6-month cycle. It looks like you are being paid. Geminis, you might be receiving approval for a loan, a mortgage, maybe a significant bonus at work. Maybe at this point in time, if you are in a partnership, your partner receives a lump sum of money. It could be an inheritance, it could be a bonus on their end. It also looks like you are possibly at this point in time, if you're running your own business, securing investment or securing external funding to take your career to the next level, my dear Geminis. It is payday. It's a significant payday because Jupiter always amplifies everything that it touches. What I would recommend treading carefully around at this full moon is Saturn in Aquarius in your 9th house of legal matters in opposition to Mars in your 3rd house of communications. If you need to sign any sort of contract, if you need to fill in paperwork, if you need to travel in order to secure your money, your payment, I would strongly recommend allocating a little bit of buffer time, especially when it comes to travel. If you have paperwork that you are involved in, maybe connected to insurance, inheritance, mortgages, loans, etc., I would absolutely recommend that you get maybe a second pair of eyes to go over your contract or to go over the papers that you need to sign, because you might miss out on some elements. Saturn, Mars, and Uranus in your 12th house are forming a T-square. The 12th house is the house of hidden enemies and the shadow. You might not notice something. So better safe than sorry, Geminis. Now, if you are a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June, Cancerians, is happening in your 7th house. It is also triggering your 1st house of identity, and it is forming a great aspect with Jupiter in Pisces in your 9th house of long distance travel, foreign lands, foreign countries, etc. So at this point in time, you could be, my dear Cancerians, around the 24th of June, traveling with a partner. You could also be, if you're single, meeting someone with the potential to become a long-term committed partner. Give or take 3 days before, 3 days after, around the 24th of June, you could be consolidating a relationship at this time by maybe making some sort of public announcement. It also looks like at this point in time, you could be finalizing something of a legal nature with a partner. It could be a business partner. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partner. Saturn, at the time of the full moon, is in your 8th house of shared resources, opposing Mars in your 2nd house of income. You could have to make some sort of compromise connected to finances if you want to take a partnership, a collaboration to the next level of commitment. You don't seem to be thrilled with it, but at the same time, you absolutely seem to be thrilled to have found a partner who is so much aligned with you from a belief system's perspective. Now, if you are a Leo sun or a Leo rising, on the 24th of June, you have a full moon in Capricorn, give or take 3 days before, 3 days after, in your 6th house of health and day-to-day work, in a great aspect to Jupiter in Pisces in your 8th house. What's happening at this time, Leos? You are completing a cycle that probably kicked off around the 13th of January. So look back at what was going on in your life at the time of the new moon in January in Capricorn. You seem to be overcoming a health-related crisis, or maybe finding a solution that gives you peace of mind. It may have been a mental health-related issue. It could have been a physical health-related issue. You could be completing a treatment at this time. You may also be completing a task at work, a project at work that has contributed to teaching you how to adapt, how to accommodate other people's needs and other people's values a lot better than you used to do beforehand. Now, The tricky part about this full moon is Saturn in Aquarius in your 7th house of partnerships in opposition to Mars in Leo in your 1st house. So you may be feeling like you are called to make some sort of compromise at this point in time to also accommodate the needs of a partner, or whatever is happening in your partnership sector might actually prompt you to take some sort of definitive action when it comes to your daily habits, your routines, how you approach work. And it does seem to be for the better health-wise for you. But at the same time, you may also be feeling like you're not exactly in charge anymore on your own, which I know is a pretty interesting position to be in for a Leo. Now, if you are a Virgo sun or Virgo rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June is happening in your 5th house of creativity, love, and children, in a great aspect with Jupiter and Pisces in your 7th house. What's going on at this time? A dream come true, Virgos. A dream come true when it comes to children. Maybe some of you are actually giving birth at this time. Some of you might be falling pregnant at this time, or hearing that your committed partner has fallen pregnant. I know some Virgos might be single, and this is a great time to mingle. Jesus, I am cheesy AF with my catchphrases. It's a good time to go out on dates if you're open. It could be a moment in time when you feel very, very proud of your children. If you do have children, they could be maybe completing an important stage in their life at this point in time. You are feeling in the mood for fun, for entertainment, maybe for a party, maybe to get together with a partner and go away and escape the world and enjoy yourselves and let your hair down, which doesn't happen quite often. Some Virgos might be releasing to the public some sort of creative project. Very careful with Saturn in your 6th house of day-to-day work in opposition to Mars in your 12th house. There does seem to be maybe if you are releasing anything work-wise, there does seem to be some rule, maybe some legal aspect that maybe you forgot about. So I would be open to maybe adjusting a little bit the timing of the launch, or maybe being open to tweaking the project if it's work-related. Some of you may be feeling completely physically exhausted and depleted, and it is a great signal, yes, you heard me right, that you also need to enjoy yourselves a little bit as well, my dear Virgos. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now, if you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June is happening in your 4th house of home, family, roots, and the past, in a great aspect to Jupiter and Pisces in your 6th house of health and day-to-day work. I love the fact, Libras, that this full moon is in a harmonious aspect to Jupiter. Why? Because it looks like this is a point of culmination for some sort of work and effort that you may have been putting towards the home. Maybe you have been renovating the home. Maybe you have been looking for a new home. Maybe you have been keeping your nose to the grindstone to provide for your family. Maybe you have helped one of your parents with money because they had some sort of health-related issues. This seems to be the completion of this process of work that you have been engaged in towards the home or to help the family. I would also look back at the 13th of January, give or take 3 days before, 3 days after Libras, because this full moon seems to reflect back to themes that may have sprung up into your life around the time. Saturn at the time is in your 5th house in opposition to Mars in your 11th house. What's happening is that you are taking, let's put it this way, you might be taking very, very seriously at this point in time one of your hobbies and talents and skills, and you might be thinking, okay, I really need to get serious about this because there is potential for me to materialize or channel into something tangible. What are my talents? And you're feeling the pressure, and the pressure is internal. And there's also a bit of a pressure for you, my dear Libras, that you are first and foremost putting on yourselves to differentiate yourselves from others. Why are you special? What are you special for? Some of you might be thinking very seriously about children and about the responsibilities that come with children around this time. Now, if you are a Scorpio sun or a Scorpio rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June is happening in your third house of sales, of communications, and of siblings, in a great aspect to Jupiter in Pisces in your fifth house. Okay, so this is great news around the 24th of June, Scorpios. Connected to anything that you may have wanted to sell, this is the great news that you're receiving, news of finalizing maybe a creative project, news of being accepted maybe on some sort of course, some sort of classroom type of environment that is connected with one of your passions and hobbies. This could also be great news for those of you who have children about your child's education. Maybe they've scored straight A's throughout the entire year, and you realize how lucky you are to have such a committed and dedicated child to their studies. This could also be a time when you maybe buy a new car, or it could be a time when you travel in order to catch up with siblings, dear Scorpios. And it does look like fun if you do so. Now, Saturn at the time is in your fourth house of home in opposition to Mars in your 10th house of career. So duty calls at home. And maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm so busy career-wise, but duty definitely calls at home. I can give you that. So no matter what's happening for you in the public sphere, it looks like your attention is being drawn more towards your private life. And you might be feeling like you are caught up between a nail and a hard place. Probably that's the saying. I know I mentioned it the other time and someone wrote it down in the comments. I forgot. So, you know. This could also be a time when you feel like you have to let down a little bit someone in a position of authority in order to take care of some home related matters. Now, if you are a Sagittarius sun or a Sagittarius rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June is happening in your second house of money and income, in a great aspect to Jupiter in your fourth house. So what is going on, Sagittarius? You are bringing home the bacon, and you're literally bringing it home. So this is great news financially for you that you are receiving. Maybe you are scoring some sort of new client. Maybe you are receiving some sort of pay rise at this point in time. Maybe one of your investments is finally paying off, but this is great news, and it's money news. This could be connected to the sale of a home, or it could be connected with scoring a great deal on the purchase of a home. My dear Sagittarius, I want to also flag that Saturn Aquarius in your third house is opposing Mars in the ninth house at the time of the full moon. So if you are selling anything or buying anything, please, please, please do not consider yourself the expert at everything, including legal matters, because there can be some elements that you don't know exactly how to deal with. So it's advisable that you ask for help, and it is also advisable that you are cautious and take your time in a step-by-step manner in reading through the entire contract or document that you are called to sign or hand over. Now, if you are a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, the full moon in Capricorn is happening in your house of identity, Capricorns, in a great aspect with Jupiter and Pisces in your third house. Okay, this is fantastic news. It does look like you have completed a cycle of personal growth, of personal evolution. It looks like at this point in time, 3 days before, 3 days after, you feel like a new person. You feel like a much more evolved person, especially when it comes to one-to-one interactions, especially when it comes to dealing with the partnerships that you are involved in, dealing with the relationships that you are involved in, my dear Capricorn. You may also be changing your status and your position in the world and your image as a result of the evolution of a relationship. So some of you could be committing at this point in time. Now, Saturn in Aquarius in your second house is opposing Mars in Leo in your 8th house. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm committed to this person. I'm signing the contract, the collaboration papers. It could be a business contract. It could be a life contract. My recommendation would be to slow a little bit down and to expose to the other person what your values are versus what their values are, especially when it comes to finances, because there could be a clash looming on the horizon when the aspect between Saturn and Mars, the opposition, goes exact. So I know you're excited. I know this feels like a victory. It is a victory. It is a win. It is you scoring a great partnership. But at the same time, there are elements that you may not have properly discussed and that you might think, oh, my partner is going to be okay with me just carrying on as usual with, I don't know, like separate bank accounts. And maybe they're not going to be okay with it. Now, if you are an Aquarius Sun or an Aquarius Rising, on the 24th of June, the full moon in Capricorn is happening in your 12th house of spirituality, of the shadow, of introspection, of rest. And it is in a great aspect with Jupiter in Pisces in your second house. What is going on? The second house is the house of money. 3 days before, 3 days after the 24th of June, Aquarians, you seem to be healing from a mental health perspective, from a physical health perspective. You seem to have some sort of revelation connected to your daily duties and your responsibilities and realize, actually, you know what? I can be a little less stressed and a little less involved, and still the work that I do can be really good, can have a really, really high standard. So it's almost as if you're learning that sometimes taking your foot off the pedal is the best thing that you can do for everyone involved. This could be a time when a new member is added to your team. Work-wise, this could be a time when you take some time off from work, well-deserved time off from work. This could also be a time when you score a client or some sort of side hustle that is lucrative, but that you prefer to keep behind the scenes. Maybe, as I said, a side hustle. Now, Saturn in your first house is going to be opposing Mars in Leo at the time of the full moon. Saturn rules your identity, but Saturn also rules your 12th house of the shadow and of hidden enemies. And Mars rules your 3rd house and your 10th house of career. So if you are scoring a side hustle, my big recommendation, Aquarius, is to tread super carefully around anything connected with your existing employer or the existing clients that you work for. My recommendation would also be to slow a little bit down when it comes to the brief that you receive, when it comes to communications, maybe with the client, because there are probably elements that you haven't caught up with or that haven't been explained to you properly, and you might be making assumptions, your client might be making assumptions, and everyone loses. It's also a great time to maybe go away from work, go away from your daily duties and responsibilities. It's good to step away from the world at this point in time. Now, if you are Pisces Sun or Pisces Rising, the full moon in Capricorn on the 24th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, is happening in your 11th house on the 11th, 5th house axis in a great aspect with Jupiter in your 1st house of identity. My lovely Pisces, this is the time of completion for you when it comes to your to one of your long-term objectives. Now, it could be more of a personal objective, so it could be maybe you completing some sort of passion project that you are deeply emotionally involved in, and that makes you feel like you have grown as a person. It could also be the completion of a personal dream connected to your romantic life. This is when also you are very likely to catch up with friends, get together with friends, feel like you belong, feel welcome, feel privileged to be surrounded by the tribe that you are surrounded by. Now, the tricky part is the fact that Saturn in your 12th house is opposing Mars in your 6th house of health and day-to-day work. So even though it's a great time to catch up with friends, to get involved in some sort of community type of projects, even if it's a great time to complete a creative project, my dear Pisces, there could be challenges connected to your day job that take your mind off a little bit, off of how well your personal projects are going and how, as I said, how lucky you are to be surrounded by the people that you are surrounded by and to find the collaborators that you have found in your life so far. My big recommendation is to take it very easy when it comes to communication at work, because there are likely to be power clashes. There are likely to be communication challenges with colleagues. Maybe you thought that everything has been handed over and it hasn't been handed over. Maybe you hear all of a sudden that a coworker is resigning and you're called, I don't know, from holiday, from vacation to pick up the slack for them. If you can triple check, if you're going away, if you're catching up with friends, if you can triple check that you have, I don't know, like handed in your handover notes in full, that would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you for tuning in for your full moon update. Keep me posted in the comments about how this full moon goes for you. And once again, don't forget, if you want to work with me, you can find me on writteninthestars-astrology.com. If you want to get a personalized reading or book a live consultation via Zoom with me, that is where you can book this type of service. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, what are you waiting for? At Rux Unbelievable in one word. Have a happy full moon, everyone. Bye.